Right now, Whole Foods is charging $14 a pound for a plant that is almost certainly growing uninvited in your backyard this season. Not exotic import, not a laboratory supplement. A vegetable your great-grandmother pulled from the ground, cooked for dinner, and never once paid a cent for. 18 of these forgotten plants exist, and the industrial seed system quietly erased every single one of them from American gardens after 1950. Somewhere in this video is the story of a retired teacher in Ohio who discovered one of these plants growing free in her own yard and saved $340 in a single season. Before plant number 1, drop your state in the comments right now. Your USDA zone completely changes which of these performs best for you. I will be calling out specific zones throughout this entire video. Find yours and pay attention. Plant number 1, purslane. Whole Foods charges $14 a pound for this plant, and there is a reasonable chance it is already pushing through the cracks in your garden path right now without a single dollar of effort from you. What the grocery industry will never tell you is that purslane contains more omega-3 fatty acids than any other leafy vegetable on the USDA food composition record. The same omega-3s sold in soft gel capsules for $45 a month at every pharmacy in America. It thrives in zones 2 through 11, meaning every single viewer watching this video can grow it free. The mistake most Americans make is pulling it out because nobody ever told them it was food. And the plant coming next, lamb's quarters, is the one most Americans spray with herbicide every single spring, not knowing they are destroying a vegetable that sells for $12 a pound at premium markets. Drop your state in the comments right now. Your zone tells me exactly which of these 18 your yard is already growing free, without your permission. Plant number 2, lamb's quarters. The average American homeowner spends $60 a season on herbicides specifically to eliminate this plant from their yard, while Whole Foods sells the same species, labeled as wild spinach, for prices that would stop you cold at the register. Lamb's quarters contains more calcium per serving than milk, more vitamin A than carrots, and more protein per leaf than conventional spinach, documented in the USDA Food Composition Database and confirmed in traditional American settler kitchen records going back 4 centuries. It self-seeds freely in zones 2 through 11. One plant this spring becomes 50 plants next spring at zero additional cost. The mistake is treating it as a weed when your great-grandmother treated it as a staple. Plant number 3 does something neither of these two can do. It produces edible leaves, edible seeds, and edible grain from one planting that self-renews every single season. Have you ever accidentally grown or eaten either of these first 2 plants without realizing it? Drop it below, because the answers in the comments on this topic always surprise me. Plant number 3, amaranth. A $2 seed packet of amaranth produces a plant that gives you edible leaves in 6 weeks, edible seeds by late summer, and a grain crop that Whole Foods sells for $9 a pound in the bulk aisle, all from a single planting that drops thousands of seeds and begins the cycle again next spring at zero cost. If you are in your 50s or 60s and have spent years buying expensive grain alternatives at premium prices, this is the plant your great-grandmother grew in zones 2 through 11 as a complete food crop long before the supplement industry packaged it into something unrecognizable. If you subscribe to Natural Verge right now, YouTube will continue putting this content in your feed, because this is exactly the kind of knowledge this channel releases every single week for American viewers who want real results. The one mistake with amaranth is harvesting the seed heads too early. Wait until the seeds release cleanly from the stalk when you run your hand along it. What comes next genuinely surprised me the first time I researched it. A root vegetable your great-grandparents grew that Whole Foods now stocks only occasionally, at $16 a pound, because commercial growers cannot produce it efficiently enough to keep the shelf full. And we have not even reached number 15 yet. That one changes everything. Plant number 4, Scorzonera. This black-rooted perennial was in every serious American kitchen garden before 1920, then vanished almost completely when industrial seed catalogs stopped carrying it. And today, the same root sells for $16 a pound at premium grocers, who can barely keep it stocked because commercial production of a root this delicate is nearly impossible to scale. Scorzonera is a true perennial, meaning you plant once in zones 5 through 10 and harvest every single year without replanting, with a flavor profile closer to oyster and artichoke than any common vegetable on the modern American market. A $3 seed packet started in early spring establishes a root system that compounds in size and yield every season permanently. The mistake most gardeners make is harvesting in the first year. Leave it one full season and the root triples in size and depth. But the plant at number 5 solves a problem. Scorzonera cannot. It gives you both a root harvest and a leaf harvest from the same plant, same season, and it has been sitting quietly in European settler kitchen garden records for 400 years. Did you believe root vegetables like these were complicated to grow? Be completely honest in the comments. Plant number 5, Hamburg parsley. This is the vegetable that colonial American settlers grew as 2 crops simultaneously, the root roasted like parsnip through winter, the leaf used fresh as parsley through summer, and it disappeared from American gardens almost entirely after seed companies decided a 2-purpose plant was harder to market than 2 separate products. The root has a concentrated nutty depth that no modern grocery store parsley variety can replicate, and specialty markets that carry it at all price it between $12 and $15 a pound because the commercial supply chain simply does not support it. A $3 seed packet started in zones 4 through 9 establishes both harvests in a single growing season. The mistake is planting it shallow. Hamburg parsley root needs at least 12 inches of loose soil depth to develop properly, and most first-time growers skip that step. Plant number 6 does something none of these 5 can claim. It has been growing in American soil since before the Revolution. It self-seeds freely, and it produces edible shoots, edible leaves, and edible seeds from one planting that cost nothing to maintain. What plant, remedy, or situation in your yard has defeated every single thing you have tried? Tell me below. Plant number 6, Good King Henry. This perennial was documented in American colonial kitchen garden records as a triple harvest plant. Young shoots eaten like asparagus in spring, mature leaves used like spinach through summer, seeds ground as a grain substitute through autumn, and the entire plant reemerges every year from the same root system without a single additional dollar spent. It was phased out not because it failed, but because it was too productive to require repeat seed purchases. And that made it entirely incompatible with the business model that took over American gardening after 1950. It establishes permanently in zones 3 through 9 from a $4 packet, with the asparagus-like spring shoots appearing reliably year after year. The mistake is harvesting spring shoots too aggressively in the first year. Let the plant root fully before taking a heavy cut. But plant number 7 takes the zero-cost principle even further. It spreads entirely on its own, requires no seed purchase at all, and was considered a kitchen garden staple across the American Northeast for 2 centuries before herbicide advertising turned it into a target. And we have not even reached number 15 yet. That one genuinely changes how you think about free food. Plant number 7, ground elder. American homeowners spend an estimated $80 per season trying to eliminate this plant from their property. A plant that European settler families brought deliberately to the American Northeast as a permanent free vegetable that needed no tending, no watering beyond rainfall, and no replanting ever. The young spring leaves have a clean, bright flavor similar to flatleaf parsley, with a mild celery note. And foraging markets in major American cities sell foraged ground elder at prices between $10 and $14 per bunch, when they can source it at all. It spreads freely across zones 4 through 9 with zero input cost. The limitation is real. Once established, it expands aggressively, so plant it in a contained bed or defined border where spread is acceptable. Plant number 8 solves the spread problem entirely. It stays exactly where you put it, produces a harvest of deep jewel-colored leaves that Whole Foods sells as premium salad greens, and was documented in Thomas Jefferson's Monticello kitchen garden records as a daily table vegetable. If you are in your 50s or 60s and have been buying specialty salad greens at premium prices for years, this one is for you specifically. Plant number 8, Orache. Jefferson grew the red and gold varieties of this plant at Monticello as daily table greens. The same leaves now sold under the label Mountain Spinach at specialty grocers for $13 per small clamshell package. Orache is not spinach and has never been. It is a distinct ancestral species with a mild, mineral flavor that holds its color and texture through light cooking in a way that conventional spinach cannot, which is precisely why chefs pay premium prices for it when they can find it. It self-seeds reliably in zones 4 through 9 from a $2 packet, establishing a permanent colony that returns every spring. This channel exists for Americans who have spent enough seasons paying premium prices for plants they could have grown free. If that is you, and you are in your 50s or 60s, subscribe to Natural Verge right now. Every week, new content, zone-aware, dollar-grounded, built for your actual life. And that is only 8 plants. What comes next is a root vegetable so sweet and unusual that food historians have documented it appearing on American presidential dinner tables. And it has been functionally absent from the commercial seed market for over 70 years. Have you ever grown any of these 8? Drop it below. Plant number 9, skirret. This clustered root vegetable was documented on the dinner tables of multiple American presidents before 1850 and described consistently in historical accounts as one of the sweetest root vegetables in cultivation. Sweeter than parsnip, more complex than carrot, and it has been absent from commercial seed catalogs so completely that most American gardeners under 60 have never heard its name. Each plant produces a cluster of 6 to 12 slender roots per harvest, and a single established plant divides into 3 to 5 new plants each season at zero additional cost. A compounding food supply that builds itself. It grows in zones 5 through 9, and the only honest limitation is this. Skirret has a thin woody core that must be removed before eating, and skipping that step is the single most common reason first-time growers dismiss it unfairly. But the plant at number 10 was not just on American tables. It was the specific vegetable at the center of the original Brothers Grimm fairy tale about Rapunzel. And it produces both a root and a flower that European markets sell at prices American gardeners would find genuinely difficult to believe. Did you believe these forgotten vegetables were difficult to source or grow? Be completely honest in the comments. Plant number 10, rampion. The Brothers Grimm did not invent Rapunzel's name. They borrowed it directly from this vegetable. Because rampion was so commonly grown and so deeply valued in European kitchen gardens that an entire fairy tale was built around a pregnant woman's craving for it. The white taproot has a mild, nutty flavor eaten raw or roasted, and the violet-blue flowers are edible and decorative, in a way that specialty food markets in New York and Chicago sell as premium garnish product at prices that make a $3 seed packet look almost embarrassing. Comparison. It establishes from seed in zones 4 through 8, producing both harvests, root and flower, from the same plant in the same season. The mistake is direct sowing in summer heat. Rampion needs cool soil to germinate, so spring or autumn sowing is the correct window. Plant number 11 does something no other plant on this list does. It replaces the onion, the scallion, and the chive with one perennial plant that never dies back, never needs replanting, and divides itself into a larger clump every single season, without a single dollar of maintenance. What plant situation in your yard has defeated everything you have tried? Tell me below. Plant number 11, Welsh onion. This is not a Welsh vegetable, and it has never been. The name is a corruption of the old German word Welsh, meaning foreign, and this perennial onion has been a kitchen garden staple across American homesteads from the colonial period forward, producing continuous scallion equivalent harvests without ever dying back to the ground in zones 6 through 9. One clump planted today divides into 3 clumps. By next spring, those 3 into 9. Those 9 into 27, a compounding onion supply that most American gardeners are currently purchasing at $2 per grocery bunch, week after week, indefinitely. The ancestral math is not subtle. One $4 plant investment today replaces a grocery line item that costs most households between $80 and $120 per year, permanently. The mistake is planting in dense shade. Welsh onion needs at least 5 hours of direct sun to divide aggressively and produce the thick green tops that make it genuinely useful. Somewhere in this list is a plant that a growing group of Americans have quietly discovered eliminates a specific supplement purchase entirely. And the story I mentioned at the beginning of this video is exactly about that moment of discovery. Drop your state in the comments right now. Your zone tells me exactly which of these remaining plants perform best in your specific yard. Earlier I mentioned a retired teacher in Ohio. Here is exactly what happened. Carol was 62, zone 6, and had been pulling the same low-growing succulent plant from her garden path every single spring for 11 years, without once questioning what it was. A neighbor mentioned it in passing. That plant you keep pulling is purslane, and Whole Foods sells it for $14 a pound. And Carol stopped pulling. She began harvesting instead, adding it to salads, cooking it into summer dishes the way her grandmother had described, but never named. By the end of that first season, she calculated the grocery equivalent of what her backyard had produced. $340 in a single growing season from a plant she had been destroying for over a decade. Documented in the USDA food composition database as one of the most omega-3 dense leafy vegetables in existence. That is not a gardening story. That is what happens when ancestral knowledge comes back to someone who was always one conversation away from it. Plant number 12, lovage. This plant grows 6 feet tall from a single crown planted once, produces continuously from spring through autumn, replaces celery entirely in every culinary application with a flavor that is deeper, more complex, and more concentrated than anything the grocery store sells under the celery label. And it has been used in traditional American and European herbal practice for digestive support in a way that modern supplement companies now package and sell for $38 a bottle. One plant established in zones 4 through 8 divides every 3 years into 3 to 5 new crowns, each fully productive, a compounding herb supply from a single $4 starting investment. The mistake is planting in dry, shallow soil. Lovage is a deep-rooted perennial that needs consistent moisture and at least 12 inches of good soil depth to reach its full productive size. But plant number 13 does something lovage cannot. It produces a harvest in late winter when almost nothing else in the American kitchen garden is alive. And it has been doing exactly that for European and American homesteaders for over 400 years. Without a single interruption, have you ever grown lovage or used it as a celery replacement? Drop it below. Plant number 13, sorrel. In late February and early March, when every other edible plant in the American kitchen garden is still dormant, sorrel pushes bright green arrow-shaped leaves through cold ground in zones 3 through 7, producing the first fresh harvest of the year before any seed catalog purchase, any frost protection, or any intervention whatsoever. High-end American restaurants pay premium prices for fresh sorrel, specifically because the commercial supply chain cannot reliably deliver it. The leaves bruise quickly, which means the only reliable source is a kitchen garden 30 feet from the back door. A $3 plant established once produces a permanent clump that divides freely and returns earlier every single year. The sharp, lemony flavor it delivers is unlike anything sold in the fresh produce section of any American grocery store at any price. Plant number 14 goes underground entirely. a root so unusual in its flavor profile that food historians have documented it appearing on Victorian dinner tables as a deliberate oyster substitute. And it has been absent from American commercial growing for so long that most viewers have genuinely never encountered it. Did you believe plants like sorrel could produce a winter harvest without protection? Be completely honest in the comments. Plant number 14, salsify. Victorian American households called this the oyster plant, not as marketing language, but as literal culinary description, because when roasted, the flavor of salsify root develops a genuine mineral, briny quality that food historians have consistently compared to oyster in documented recipe collections dating back to the 1840s. Whole Foods carries it in fewer than 12% of its American locations, and when they do, it prices between $14 and $18 per pound because domestic commercial production cannot meet demand from specialty restaurant buyers who already consume the available supply. It grows in zones 5 through 9 from a $3 seed packet, produces a harvest in the first season, and self-seeds freely in subsequent years from the dramatic seed heads that follow the purple flowers. The mistake is harvesting before the first frost. Cold exposure is what triggers the full flavor development, and early harvests miss the oyster note entirely. And that brings us to the plant I mentioned at the very beginning, number 15. The one the supplement industry and the grocery industry both profit from heavily, that Native Americans used as their primary carbohydrate for generations, and that a growing number of American gardeners are quietly bringing back to their own yards right now. This is the one. This is the plant I mentioned at the very beginning, number 15. Here it is. Groundnut, Apios americana, was the primary carbohydrate of multiple Native American nations across the eastern United States for thousands of years, was documented on the Lewis and Clark Expedition food list as a critical wilderness nutrition source, and contains 3 times the protein content of the common potato per equivalent serving, according to nutritional analysis published in Traditional American Ethnobotanical Research. The same tubers now appear in premium grocery stores and specialty online markets at prices between $18 and $24 per pound when they can be sourced at all. Because commercial cultivation of this nitrogen-fixing perennial vine has never been successfully scaled. It grows in zones 3 through 9, produces a larger tuber chain every single year from the same root system, and costs $5 to $10 to establish once permanently. That is not gardening, that is investing. Plant number 16 takes the perennial principle even further. It was bred from wild sea cliffs. It requires almost no soil amendment. And it produces a harvest so unusual in texture and flavor that Michelin-starred restaurants in New York have placed standing orders for it that local growers consistently cannot fill. Drop your state in the comments. Your zone determines whether this next plant is possible for you right now. Plant number 16, sea kale. This silver blue perennial was harvested from British sea cliffs for centuries before kitchen gardeners learned to force it, covering the crown in early spring to blanch the emerging shoots white, creating a harvest with a flavor and texture closer to white asparagus than any brassica family vegetable. And Michelin-starred American restaurants now place standing orders for forced sea kale at prices local specialty growers consistently cannot supply. It establishes from a $6 plant in zones 4 through 8, requires no soil amendment beyond good drainage, and produces a larger, more productive crown every single year for 20 years or more from a single planting. The forcing technique is the key that most American gardeners miss. Place an opaque pot or forcing jar over the crown in late winter and harvest the blanched white shoots 2 to 3 weeks later before they hit light. Plant number 17 grows where almost nothing else will, costs under $2 to start, and was the documented survival food of California gold rush miners who ate it through winters when no other fresh vegetable was available, which is exactly how it earned the name it still carries today. Have you ever grown sea kale or forced any vegetable for an early harvest? Drop it below. Plant number 17, miner's lettuce. California gold rush miners ate this plant through winter months as their primary source of vitamin C when scurvy threatened camps that had run out of every other fresh food. A historical record documented in multiple Gold Rush-era journals and confirmed in nutritional analysis that shows Claytonia perfoliata as genuinely vitamin C dense per fresh weight. Today, the same plant sells as a specialty microgreen and salad ingredient at premium markets in California and the Pacific Northwest for prices between $10 and $16 per small container. Because it grows only in cool, shaded conditions that commercial greenhouse operations find difficult to replicate at scale. It self-seeds prolifically in zones 5 through 10 from a $2 packet, establishing a permanent cool season carpet that returns every autumn without replanting. The timing mistake is planting in summer. Miner's lettuce germinates only in cool soil below 60 degrees, and summer sowing produces nothing. And the final plant on this list, number 18, was the vegetable that fed the Roman legions marching through northern Europe. Disappeared from American gardens so completely that most viewers have never encountered its name, and produces a harvest in early spring that no other plant on this list can match for sheer culinary versatility. Did you believe Gold Rush miners used garden plants as survival medicine? Be completely honest in the comments. Plant number 18, Alexander's. Roman legions carried this plant deliberately across northern Europe as a field vegetable. The stems eaten like celery, the leaves used as a pot herb, the roots roasted through winter, the seeds ground as a spice, making it one of the most completely edible plants in documented Western culinary history, and one that vanished from American kitchen gardens after celery was domesticated into a commercial crop that made Alexander's seem redundant by comparison. Specialty food markets and restaurant foraging suppliers that carry it at all price fresh Alexander's stems at $12 to $15 per pound because no domestic commercial production exists. It establishes from a $3 seed packet in zones 5 through 9, self-seeds reliably in subsequent years, and emerges in early spring, weeks before most other kitchen garden plants have broken dormancy. Your great-grandmother grew this without ever calling it rare. The supplement industry simply never found a way to bottle it. We are not ending here, because before we close, there are 3 things about this list that most viewers will watch this entire video and still miss entirely. And the third one will change how you think about free food permanently. Drop your state in the comments. Your zone is the map that determines which of these 18 your yard is already growing right now without your knowing. Here is what most viewers will miss. First, groundnut plant number 15 is not just a carbohydrate replacement. It is a complete protein source with an amino acid profile that rivals lentil. Documented in American Ethnobotanical Research, which means a single established patch eliminates a protein supplement purchase that costs most American households between $40 and $60 per month. Second, of the 18 plants on this list, 11 of them are classified as perennials or reliable self-seeders, meaning once established correctly, the grocery savings they represent do not stop. They compound the same way a financial investment compounds, except the return arrives in food rather than currency. Third, Whole Foods cannot keep purslane in stock in 17 of its top 20 American markets right now, not because of supply chain failure, but because a growing group of American foragers and gardeners have quietly created local demand that commercial supply was never built to meet. And every one of those Americans started exactly where you are right now. Here is how to decide where to start. If you are in zones 2 through 5, prioritize lamb's quarters, sorrel, and Welsh onion first. All 3 are frost hardy, self-seeding, or dividing. And establish a permanent free harvest in the first season with a combined starting cost under $10. If you are in zones 6 through 9, all 18 plants on this list are viable for your yard, and the fastest financial return comes from starting with purslane and lovage simultaneously. Both establish within 30 days of spring planting and begin replacing grocery and supplement purchases immediately. The spring planting window for self-seeding varieties closes faster than most gardeners expect. Most of these establish best when soil hits 50 degrees, which in the American Midwest and South means April is not a preference. It is a biological window with a closing date. One afternoon this spring, correctly invested, establishes a free food supply your great-grandmother would have recognized instantly, and that the supplement industry is genuinely hoping you never figure out. You just received zone-accurate, dollar-grounded, research-based plant and ancestral wisdom covering 18 vegetables that most gardening channels will never put in one place. Because putting them in one place removes the need to keep buying what the commercial seed and supplement system sells as replacements. That is what every Natural Verge video delivers. Subscribe now and turn on the bell, because next week, this channel goes deeper into the plants your great-grandmother knew by name that the wellness industry now sells in capsule form for prices she would have found genuinely difficult to believe. Like this video if any one of these 18 plants is already growing free in your yard right now. And subscribe to Natural Verge, because the plants your great-grandmother knew are still out there, and we find them every single week.